She broke my fence for lake access, but she had no idea she was about to lose everything, even the HOA she hid behind. That morning, the sun was just coming up over the water, the light dancing on the calm lake. When Valentina stepped out onto the porch with her coffee, she looked like peace itself in that moment. Her veteran posture relaxed, letting herself breathe for the first time since coming home. But that peace didn't last. I heard it first, a loud crack, like a bat hitting wood. I ran down to the dock, bare feet slapping the grass, and there she was, Karen, holding a crowbar in broad daylight, snapping the last piece of our fence clean off. She turned to me, smirking, and said, "You're blocking the HOA lake access." My blood boiled, not just because she destroyed my fence, but because she stood there, acting like it was her right. She had been harassing us for weeks, calling the HOA over noise complaints when Valentina practiced guitar, reporting us for unapproved flags when we flew Valentina's unit flag on the porch. And now she decided to take the fence down herself. Valentina stepped up beside me, calm, eyes cold, her hand brushing mine as if to say, "We do this smart." Karen was still live, streaming on her phone, narrating for her little Facebook group. "See, they're blocking the community's lake. I'm fixing it myself since the HOA board won't act. But here's the thing, we own this land, all of it, right down to the waterline. We had the deed, the surveys, the paperwork. She just didn't care." I told her, "Karen, you're trespassing. Put the crowbar down." She laughed. "Call the cops, Marcus. See if they care. I am the HOA president." She thought that meant she was untouchable. But Valentina just tilted her head and said, "No, Karen, we're calling the cops for you." Karen's face dropped for a moment, but she tried to recover, shouting, "You can't keep us from the lake, it's public." But it wasn't. We didn't want to fight, but she was determined to start one. When the sheriff arrived, Karen flipped the script, shrieking about aggression, veterans with PTSD, and threats that never happened. Valentina calmly handed over the deed, showed the exact survey lines. The sheriff's deputy looked at Karen and said, "Ma'am, you need to leave their property." She turned red, then white, then nearly purple. But that was just the beginning, because Karen wasn't going to stop. She started a smear campaign on the neighborhood Facebook group, calling Valentina dangerous, me unstable, and our home a nuisance. She filed fake noise complaints, trash violations, even tried to fine us $500 for grass clippings on the road, and she tried to use HOA pressure to force us out, to get the lakefront for herself, but Karen didn't know who she was messing with. Valentina had served in active combat zones. She'd stared down men who thought they could break her. Karen was nothing in comparison. One night, Valentina looked at me, her eyes tired but fierce, and said, "I'm done letting her push us." That's when we started digging. We pulled every HOA meeting record, every budget line, every payment Karen had made. We weren't looking for revenge. We were looking for the truth, and what we found was bigger than Karen's petty harassment. It was a web of embezzlement, fraud, and fake liens. Karen wasn't just trying to take our lake access. She was using her position to steal from the entire neighborhood, and she thought she could get away with it. But she was about to find out that Valentina was the wrong veteran to mess with, and I was the wrong husband to threaten, and the next HOA meeting would change everything. The HOA meeting was held on a muggy Thursday night. Folding chairs lined up in the community hall, neighbors shifting uncomfortably, whispering. Karen sat at the front, in her red blazer, tapping her nails on the table, trying to look like the queen of the room. But even she looked nervous when Valentina and I walked in, with a thick binder in Valentina's hand. Karen's son, Dylan, was standing near the door, arms crossed, giving us that smirk that said, "You won't win." But we didn't come to fight. We came to end it. The HOA meeting started like always, reading minutes, discussing petty fines, talking about grass height. Then Karen cleared her throat loudly. "Before we move on, we need to address the behavior of Marcus and Valentina regarding the lake access." She was smirking again. She thought she had the crowd, but Valentina calmly stood up, her veteran calmness settling over the room like a weight. She said, "Actually, I'd like to address that myself." Karen scoffed. "This isn't a court, Valentina." Valentina laid the binder on the table with a heavy thump and opened it. Inside were copies of the property deeds, the survey maps, and the security camera photos, including one of Karen hiding in the trees, watching her son and his buddies destroy the memorial garden we had for my brother by the lake. The garden they tore up while laughing, the garden where Valentina went to pray every morning. The room went silent. You could hear people's breathing. Karen's eyes darted, her jaw tightening. She tried to speak. "This is irrelevant. We're talking about your fence." Valentina calmly turned the page. Bank statements, HOA budget discrepancies, payments to Karen's consulting business. That didn't exist. Thousands of dollars missing. Neighbors leaning forward, eyes wide, whispering, "Is this real?" Karen's face drained of color. She tried to grab the binder, but Valentina held it firm. She said, "Karen, you have stolen from your neighbors. You have harassed veterans. You have broken the law." A neighbor stood up. "Is this true, Karen?" Another voice from the back, "My fees went up last year. Where did that money go?" Karen stammered, "This is slander. I'm the president. You can't." Valentina looked her dead in the eye. "Karen, we can." At that moment, the door opened. 2 sheriff's deputies walked in. Quietly, Karen turned, startled. They asked, "Karen Miller?" She tried to stand. "What is this? I'm in the middle of a meeting." The deputy calmly said, "Ma'am, you are under arrest for fraud, mail tampering, and harassment." The room erupted in gasps. Karen's son shouted, "This is a setup." But no one believed him. They led Karen out, her face red, tears forming, still trying to bark orders, but no one was listening. Her power was gone. Valentina stood there, shoulders back, eyes softening for the first time in months. She looked at the neighbors and said, "This ends now. No more fear, no more abuse. We deserve better." People clapped. Some cried. A neighbor came up, shaking Valentina's hand. "Thank you for standing up." And in that moment, the HOA meeting turned into a community again. People talking, sharing stories about Karen's threats, her fake fines, her intimidation. The fear was gone, but it wasn't over yet, because after Karen was taken away, the investigation started. What we found would shake the entire neighborhood and change our lives forever. When Karen was led out in handcuffs, the community was left in stunned silence. People were looking at each other, unsure what to say. Valentina placed the binder back in her bag, zipped it up, and took a deep breath. She looked at me and whispered, "It's not over yet." That night, we sat on our porch by the lake. The moon reflected off the water, the breeze carrying the scent of pine and earth. Valentina sipped her tea, her hands trembling slightly. I placed my hand over hers. "You did it." She shook her head. "We did it. But there's more." 2 days later, the county investigators arrived at the HOA office. With warrants, they started pulling files, computers, old receipts, everything. Neighbors watched from their windows as boxes were carried out. Word spread like wildfire. We learned Karen had been pocketing HOA fees, paying for vacations, expensive wine, even plastic surgery consultations. She had also been forging signatures on violation notices, weaponizing the HOA against anyone who questioned her. Neighbors we thought were distant started knocking on our door. Karen threatened to fine us if we talked to you. She said she'd raise our dues if we supported your fence. She told me Valentina was dangerous, that she was unstable. Valentina listened, her jaw clenching, but her eyes softening. She hugged an elderly neighbor who came crying. "I'm so sorry I didn't believe you." Valentina whispered, "You're safe now." But there was one thing left. The lakefront. Karen had claimed the HOA controlled the lake path and dock, charging neighbors access fees. But Valentina pulled out the old survey map she found in the courthouse basement, the one we almost overlooked. It showed the entire shoreline was part of our property, granted to my family generations ago for maintaining the dock and waterline. We owned it, all of it. I stood there by the water holding the survey, the breeze flapping the edges. Feeling the weight of the past and the promise of the future, Valentina came up beside me, resting her hand on my back. Karen wanted to control us, but she forgot we're not the type to back down. I nodded, "It's time." That weekend, we put up new signs along the shoreline. Private property, no trespassing. Neighbors came by worried, asking if they were banned too. We shook our heads, smiling, "You're welcome anytime. This is for the ones who tried to abuse it." That night, Karen's son and his buddies tried to tear the signs down, but the new cameras caught everything. Sheriff deputies arrived, flashlights cutting through the darkness, catching them red-handed. They were charged with trespassing and vandalism. Valentina stood on the porch, arms crossed, watching as they were taken away. She didn't smile, she didn't gloat. She simply said, "Justice." A week later, the HOA board voted to dissolve the association under the weight of the scandal. The neighborhood was free. Neighbors organized a potluck by the lake to celebrate. Kids played near the water. People laughed, plates clinked. Valentina stood by the dock, looking at the sunset over the lake, her reflection shimmering in the water. I wrapped my arm around her. "You okay?" She nodded, eyes glistening, for the first time in a long time. "Yes." We had protected my late brother's memorial garden. We had protected our home. We had protected our neighbors. But as we watched the sunset, Valentina turned to me and said softly, "There's one more thing we need to do." I raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" She smiled faintly. "Let's make sure this never happens again." The next morning, Valentina sat at the kitchen table, a single lamp lighting her determined face. She had her notebook open, pages filled with scribbles, phone numbers, legal notes. I poured her a coffee, sliding it over. "You're not done, are you?" She looked up, tired but resolute. "No, we need to help the others." Within a week, we hosted a community meeting on the lawn by the lake. Families came with folding chairs. Kids ran barefoot on the grass. Neighbors who once stayed away now gathered, hopeful. Valentina stood up front, holding the microphone, her voice steady. "We've all lived under fear, under threats, under lies." She looked at each neighbor in the eye. "Letting the silence hold, but you don't have to anymore." She explained how Karen's abuse wasn't unique, how HOA across the county were using hidden bylaw changes, intimidation, and forged violations to control people. She offered resources, county contacts, legal aid options. She told them how to document, to record, to stand firm. A man in the crowd raised his hand, voice shaky. "What if they come after us like they came after you?" Valentina paused, her gaze unwavering. "Then they'll face all of us." The crowd erupted into applause, some people wiping away tears. After the meeting, people stayed to talk, to hug, to share stories they'd kept hidden. A single mother told Valentina how Karen had threatened to tow her car for a cracked taillight. An elderly couple shared how they paid hundreds in fake lawn violations just to avoid conflict. Valentina listened, nodding, taking notes. "You're not alone anymore," she told them. That night, as we walked along the dock, moonlight dancing on the lake, Valentina stopped and looked out across the water. She took a deep breath, the breeze lifting her hair. I didn't realize how heavy this burden was until it was gone. She whispered. I stood behind her, wrapping my arms around her shoulders. "You fought for all of us," I said quietly. She turned, pressing her forehead against mine. "No, we fought together." The next day, we began organizing a neighborhood council, not an HOA, but a real voluntary community group where voices mattered, where people could share concerns, plan events, and support each other without fear, where no one would be fined for a flower bed or harassed over a fence. We set up a community garden near the lake, dedicating it to my late brother. Kids helped plant sunflowers, neighbors brought vegetable seedlings, and Valentina painted a wooden sign, "Freedom grows here." Karen's house went up for sale. She left town under the weight of fraud charges and public disgrace. The woman who tried to bully us out of our home was gone, and in her place was peace. We spent our evenings on the porch again. Valentina in a rocking chair, me with my guitar, strumming softly as the crickets sang. Sometimes neighbors would walk by, wave, and join us for iced tea, sharing laughter as the stars emerged. Valentina looked at the stars one night and said, "You know," she thought she could steal a piece of this place, but she didn't understand. I smiled. "Understand what?" She turned to me, eyes shining, "That this place isn't just land. It's our family, our memories, our freedom, and no one can take that." And as the camera pans out, showing the lake glistening under the starlight, the wind rustling the trees, the lights of our home warm against the darkness, Valentina's voice echoes softly, "No matter who tries, we will always stand."